Before we get into the news from today's press conference, I gotta know, are you excited about this new era? We got to see the brand new coaching staff for the first time all together today. They answered a ton of the most pressing questions among Ravens fans across the country. But I think over everything, it was just great to see a bunch of new faces on the podium, behind the table. And if you're pumped up about it, do me one big favor. Cast your vote and let me know by hitting that thumbs up button on today's video. I think my biggest takeaway from the press conference today is that your new Ravens offensive coordinator, 29-year-old offensive coordinator that is, Declan Doyle, he sent a message to Ravens players, okay? And it wasn't coded. It wasn't, low-key. He pretty much just flat out there went out and challenged them to something this offseason. A little bit more on what I'm talking about. He was asked about OTAs, right? Whether he expects the veterans, the players to be there. And he said, look, we would expect them to be here. Certainly it's voluntary. But also, if you want to say that you're going to win a championship, you want to say that you have championship standards, and those are your goals and your expectations, certainly that's going to take work. That's going to take collaboration. That's going to take the beginning of building the relationship with their coaches and other players. Starting off this next regime on the right foot. And I'll be honest with you guys. I could not agree more with this if I tried. In fact, if I was in Declan Doyle's shoes, I would have said the exact same thing. Because I think he nailed it there at the end. Especially with this new coaching staff, right? When you look at last season, OTAs, sure, you want those players to get there. You want them to get their new reps, but you had a second-year defensive coordinator. You had a third-year offensive coordinator. You had a 17th season of a head coach. And so it's like they weren't necessarily new installs. It wasn't necessarily a ton of new information, new things being learned. But now you've got a brand new head coach, brand new defensive scheme, brand new offensive scheme, new everything. You need your guys to be in the building. You need your leaders to be in the building. June is going to be crucial to get ahead. Because sure, you could say, Joey, not a ton of that stuff really even matters until you get to training camp. Well, it matters to get ahead in June so that way you're not behind in July. Because if they're not there in June, guess what they've all got to do for the first time in July? They got to learn the install, right? And so I believe Declan Doyle today used that platform to send a message to the veterans and to the leaders on this team and say, hey, I want your butt to be in the facility come June for OTAs. He looked at the leaders and said, look, this is where leaders need to be leaders. It is your job to not only be in the building, but to make sure that the guys in your position groups, the guys on your side of the football, they are there as well. Lamar Jackson, Kyle Hamilton, Roquan Smith, Derrick Henry, Nnamdi Madubuike. The 5 guys on this roster that I believe people look up to the most. It is up to them to set that new standard. It is up to them to make sure that those guys surrounding them are there partaking as well. I don't care if you've got contract negotiations. I don't care really, frankly, about anything. Because if your true goal is to win a Super Bowl, if your true goal is to compete at the highest level, and hoist a Lombardi trophy, that starts in June. That starts, honestly, far before June, but that's really where the players get to participate for the first time. Look back at the Seattle Seahawks this last year. Look at them 2 years ago with that new coaching staff. You think they had guys holding out? It's going to be big for these leaders to step up and make sure this isn't an issue and make sure that everybody's there and ready to go compete for a championship. Do you agree with Declan Doyle? Give me a yes or give me a no down below in that comment section. Weigh in with your answer and tell me what you think and where you lie. One of the biggest questions for Declan Doyle today was his offensive philosophy. And he gave 3 non-negotiables for his offenses. Number 1, they're physical. Number 2, they're detailed. Number 3, they are explosive. I think that's one of the biggest things we've seen take the National Football League by storm offensively over the last couple of years. I tend to look at it in the same way I look at three-pointers in the NBA. People realize, hey, 3 points is better than 2. I think over the last couple of years, people have realized how big explosive plays are offensively. And that the more explosive plays you can create, the better you're going to be at moving the football down the field and ending up with points. I love the fact that he preached about physicality, that he preached about detail. I still got a lot of people probably asking this question, but what about his relationship with Lamar Jackson? And we can skip this social, Ethan, and go just straight to the quote, if you don't mind. That was a big question for the entirety of this process because we got that report from Diana Rossini that Lamar Jackson really, really wanted Cliff Kingsbury. We can skip this, Ethan. Go to the quote. That Lamar Jackson really, really wanted Cliff Kingsbury, right? And so when Declan Doyle originally got hired, everybody's like, okay, how does Lamar Jackson feel about this, right? Well, Declan Doyle said today, look, we've had, exchanged text messages. We've Zoomed a couple of times. And he said he's certainly excited about the caliber of player that he is. But he also loves his willingness to listen and his hunger to learn and grow. And then I thought this was really interesting. He said that first play can be more consistent at time with his eyes. Starting off with a little bit of critique of Lamar. Within his footwork, within the system, that's kind of what I've noticed as we've watched the tape. I think that Declan Doyle is going to be unbelievable for Lamar Jackson's game. If Lamar Jackson wants to get challenged, if Lamar Jackson wants to grow, if he wants to change, if he wants to get better, if he wants to be coached hard, I think Declan Doyle is going to be there to do it for him, right? I mean, in his introductory press conference to every single Ravens fan across the country, he says the first play can be more consistent at times with his eyes. He's already seeing things that Lamar Jackson can improve upon. I cannot wait to see where these two go hand in hand in the future. You want Lamar Jackson to get another MVP? I sure do. It's time for MV3 to be a thing, ladies and gentlemen. If you are right there with me, hit that thumbs up button and make sure you are liking today's video. Cast your vote that way. Another thing I know each and every one of you guys will like, and I know that because I like it myself, is our brand new Baltimore Drinking Team t-shirts that we've got live right now on the Chat Sports site. If you go to chatsports.com/flockgreen, or I even made it easy for you, I put in the comments and description of today's video. If you don't like it in green, some people, might not think green is their color. We got it in black as well. I need people on my drinking team, whether you celebrate St. Patrick's Day or whether you use it as an excuse to hang out with your friends and go drink a ton. Support us here at the channel and get yourself a brand new awesome, awesome shirt. It is our second ever piece of merch that we've got on our store. So, first 5 people, I said this on Wednesday or a little bit earlier, first 5 people that purchase this shirt, I will give you a shout out on the next live show or an upcoming video. So be one of the first to be on our Baltimore drinking team because I need some teammates. Some other presser takeaways. They harped on a new age play like a Raven, which I thought was really, really cool. And I thought personally, this was something that I needed to hear. Because what was the biggest thing I stressed, during this head coach hiring phase? The biggest thing I was harping on for the entirety of this process was I need a new head coach that can bring back the play like a Raven mentality. And Jesse Minter said today that he and Anthony Weaver are going to work on a, quote, new age way to play like a Raven. Because I think we realize that over the last 2 decades, things have shifted. The players are different in 2025 than they were in 2005. The attitudes are different. They want to be coached differently. Their physicality is different. The coaches are different. And so you probably won't be able to get the same caliber of player from a physicality or toughness standpoint that you would have been able to have 20 years ago. That's just kind of the way the world works. But you've got to take a new age approach at it because still, to play like a Raven is important for Baltimore. In my opinion, it's the reason that you have not been able to make a change and win some big games over these last couple of seasons because you haven't had guys that are mentally and physically tough that want to impose their will. You definitely did not have that this past season. Anthony Weaver also talked about the edge rusher position. Obviously, he was a defensive lineman back in the day for Baltimore. Started in Baltimore a couple of years ago as the defensive line coach. Now he is back as the defensive coordinator. This is a big topic of discussion over this offseason is what is the Ravens going to do with their edge rushers? Because last season, they frankly weren't good enough. Well, Anthony Weaver said that, hey, we certainly have some rushers from a talent standpoint. We have dudes who can get there. He also pointed out how the injury to Nnamdi Madueke dealt a hit to the Ravens' pass rush. Now, that part I do not disagree with. This part I might disagree with just a little bit. Because when you look at the Ravens' edge rusher room, Like when you think about the talent that they've currently got on that roster, like right now, it's Adisa Isaac, Mike Green, Tavius Robinson, right? You've got guys like David Ajabo. He's a free agent. Draymond Jones, he's a free agent. Kyle Van Noy, he's a free agent. And so I don't necessarily agree that you got those guys from a talent standpoint. That is why we've talked a lot about either making a big trade or making that a massive emphasis come time for the NFL draft. Last up, I thought this was cool. Declan Doyle shot down some age concerns. I don't know if you guys know this. I mentioned it at the top of the video, but he is 29 years old, which is absolutely unbelievable to me because I will be 26 in September. And I talk on YouTube for a living. He's about to be an offensive coordinator. Jack, how old are you? Jack is 27, even closer to Declan Doyle's age. Regardless, that's also been a concern from a lot of people. He's so young. What does he know about calling offenses? And he says, look, I've always been too young for every job I've ever had. But he's learned that that doesn't matter because knowledge is power. And he has gotten to learn over the past 5 years or so from some of the most knowledgeable offensive minds in the game. From Sean Payton, from Ben Johnson. He's gotten to soak up so much information. He talked about the fact that, hey, look, I've never called plays before, but that doesn't mean that I don't visualize what plays I would be calling in those situations. I've got a lot of trust in Declan Doyle. I said at the time that it was a risk, right? But I think he's got a high ceiling. Sometimes you got to, risk it for the biscuit, as they say. That's going to do it for today's show. Thanks so much for hanging out with us, Ravens fans. Make sure you guys got me followed on socials, Twitter, and Instagram. Combine week next week is going to be crazy busy. We'll have you covered here, but I'll also have you covered on Twitter for the entirety of it. Make sure you give me a follow over there, and make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We'll give you daily content, okay? Only on the Baltimore Ravens all off season long. We're not going anywhere, so don't go anywhere either, and we'll see you next time.